Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Cowboy Cartel, the podcast. As you can see, we are in a pretty iconic location. We are in Kent Rollins' famous studio.
Hey, ain't nothing famous about it, but we're glad to have you, my friend.
Hey, thanks for having us out.
Oh, it is our honor, our honor.
You know, I think we share a lot of the same viewer type, and I think my viewers I know they have some questions because we posted last night that we were going to be here, and we gave some of them an opportunity to ask some questions, and we're going to ask those maybe a little bit toward the end.
All right, sounds good.
All right. So first thing, I want to tell you that your videos have helped me in that my grandmother used cast iron all of my life, and I really learned to cook with her. And so I would help her as a child, and my mother really never used the cast iron, and so it kind of went away when my grandmother went away. And recently, within the last 2 years, I decided, well, maybe I'll try cast iron again because I'd seen your videos, and I'm only using, you know, the Lodge, the cheap stuff. I don't think I'm ready for, you know, the good stuff yet.
There's nothing wrong with the Lodge, really. It's they've got the market cornered. As long as it's made in the USA, that's all I'm after, you know.
That's right. That's right. So, you know, my brand, it really started with American-made products, and we try to stick to that as much as possible. We go to, you know, hat manufacturers who make here in the United States. We go to boot manufacturers who make here in the United States. We've talked to actually a lady in New Mexico who's making jeans out of El Paso, you know. So we try to stay in the American-made products as much as we can, especially in the Western industry. Speaking of which, we had the opportunity to go up to Gillette, Wyoming this year for the inaugural Dusty Vaquero Days music festival. While we were there, we met a gentleman named Paul, and Paul makes it's handmade, forged, and it's not cast iron, but it's carbon steel cookware. You familiar with that?
Yeah, there's a lot of that in the United States, and it's really, you treat it the same as cast iron, and it's not as heavy as cast iron. You know, you still have to season it. It really, the heat retention might be a little less than what regular cast iron is, because cast was made, the reason it was heavy is it held heat so well, you know, so many years ago. But them skillets are nice, and I've seen some of them, used some of them in the past, but they are good. It's all right.
Well, when I saw them, I thought, well, these are beautiful. One day I want to have one of these, but I just, not right yet. I don't want to ruin it. But we called Paul, and we told him we were going to be here.
Uh-oh.
And
have to get down, Mage.
He sent us something for you.
Well, thank you.
And he did it really fast. So we called him, I think, week before last, when we know we were going to be here.
You know, the thing I always liked about them more than anything else, when you first bring them out of the box or the pan, they've got that patina to them. They've got that shine to them already. And this probably weighs a little less than cast iron, but there's still some thickness in the bottom. This is one of the thicker ones that I've seen bottom-wise. So I'll break it in, see what happens. Know what I mean?
Right.
But you be sure and tell him thank you, but thank y'all too.
I will. This is Paul at Independent Ironworks.
Yeah, Independent Ironworks.
And if you look on the bottom, since he knew it was for you.
Cowboy Kent Rollins.
There you go.
And, well, that is nice. I appreciate that very much.
He was real excited to have a chance to let you cook on one of his skillets, handmade in the United States. You know, you can't get any better than that.
No. We'll break it in. We'll make sure that it's used. And first thing, I mean, always in cast iron, if I ever had something new, first thing after I seasoned it or anything like that is always fry potatoes in it. You know, because when you keep in an oil in a skillet, whether it be that one or any cast iron, and you're deep frying something, you're maintaining a level of over 350 degrees most time, and it's just loving itself. You know, it gets to re-season all the time. And so I'll fry up some potatoes and some eggs and bacon, and if I can get Shan up to eat it, her and Major.
Well, great. Enjoy it. I know he was excited to have you look at it. And please let us know what you think of it.
I will. We'll put it to use. To me, I've seen a lot of them skillets that were made like that, and I seen one at a deal we were doing in Missouri one time, Wagons for Warriors. It'd be like 30-something chuck wagons there, you know. And a guy had one that's probably 3 foot across, you know, and I'm thinking, you're going to need you and 3 mules to pick that up to put it on the fire. But that is the right size. It's handy. I'm glad it's got a longer handle too, and I like that he hammered it here, you know. So it'll be good. We'll make sure it gets plenty of use.
That's great. Great to hear. So I didn't really know that you were still actively out cooking for events and for cowboys until we were at the Caprock Cowboy Fandango in Turkey, Texas, and they had another chuck wagon there, and they had told us that they wanted to have you, but you had a scheduling conflict. So at that point, I said, well, that's cool. Let's see if we can get a hold of him and talk about it.
Yeah, you know, somebody asked me one time, so when are you going to quit cooking? I said, I'm going to cater my own funeral. You know, it's great life insurance that way. Shan can charge them nothing to get in, but $500 a plate to get out. You know, so it'll be good most of the time. But ranch cooking is something. You know, after I started guiding elk hunters in '81 through '86, and it's really the same thing, but you're just packing it in on a mule. We'd go 21 miles into the Gila wilderness, and nobody had ever taught me to bake in cast iron. My mother had taught me to cook when I was 8 or 9 years old. But to bake in anything in cast iron and then be at 8,000 foot elevation, there's a lot of variables that I didn't know anything about at the time. And I'd got up that first morning, base camp was of nearly 8,000 foot. Made biscuits about 2 o'clock in the morning, you know, and after I'd gathered the mules and put the morels on them for them to eat, gonna let them rise about an hour. It's about like this when I put them in there. An hour later, they're still like this, you know, and I'm thinking, we're just gonna cook them. I don't know. And I cooked them, and they still was about like that. And one of them hunters said, is this flatbread? I said, it is today. I don't know what it's going to be tomorrow, but I said, that's what it is today. But it took me 5 or 6 days to think something's not right, you know, here. And then I got to thinking, well, I was cooking at 1,800 foot. You know, now I'm at nearly 8,000 foot. And so I thought back to chemistry class in high school and what gives something a little elevation in something that you're cooking. Sure, you've got yeast in there to help you rise, but you're also going to have to add baking soda to your baking powder. You're going to get that reaction. And I've always tried to figure things out when they come to me. You know, we always thought, if you're not challenged in life, you never change. You know, if life is easy and simple and you just go through it without ever having something to get in your way, you never know how to figure out the next step. And I've been having to improvise all my life. And because when you're a ranch cook and you're cooking in Mother Nature's conditions all the time, people say you have plan A, B, C. We had X, Y, Z, you know, because you don't know what's going to happen. The wind could blow 65 miles an hour. You could get a dirt storm. It could go to snowing. It could go to hailing. And, but I always told them if they can work in it, I can cook in it. And we never get tired of it. You know, the days are long, nights are short, but we're in country that nobody gets to see, really. Some of the greatest people I ever met were cowboys and on ranches, old-timers. I've been doing this 38 years, and it's a blessing every day to meet one of them old-timers. I'm glad there's young cowboys coming up, but I don't see many young cooks coming up. That's what sort of bothers me in a way. You don't see a lot of people say, oh, I want to be a chuck wagon cook, you know. But maybe somebody will step up and take the place, because we carry on a lot of heritage that an old cook started back in the 1870s. You know, I've been on ranches where he was at and went down the same trails that old cook went. And it's a pretty awesome feeling to look back behind you and you see wagon tracks in the road. You know, I'm thinking, he made them. We're making them just like he did. I don't know.
What is it about your profession that sticks to those old 100-plus-year-old ways and hasn't modernized? Because everybody's using a chuck wagon, right?
It's, I always tell folks, I have the same method of cooking that old Cookie did going down the trail in the 1870s, 1880s. I just have a whole lot more to work with than he did. You know, typical meal back then, biscuit, beans, and coffee, you know, of a morning. And at supper, if you was lucky, you'd still have biscuit, beans, and coffee, but maybe you'd have a little side meat to go with it, salt pork. If he had a little dried fruit, maybe he could make a cobbler. But every meal tells a story. You gather people around fire for years. You know, cavemen did it. They think, hey, this is nice. Then one of them got smart and said, hey, we're going to throw that piece of meat on the fire and see what happens. Food and fire has brought people together forever and ever. And it's a chance to bring about fellowship. But to be a ranch cook and to think that I'm walking in the footsteps of some of them old guys that's 125, 130 years ago, every morning when I'd get up and cowboys would come into camp, I would think to myself, I'm the luckiest man in the world. Look what I get to see, look what I get to do. And I'm not changing his methods of cooking ever. We still bake in a Dutch oven, we still cook over an open fire. Sure, I've got an old wood burning stove too, but the history that we can pass down to another generation to where it lives on, that's the best part.
I love it. Speaking of wood-burning stove, let's talk about old Bertha.
Yeah. You know, I love two women, Shan and Bertha. I don't really like Bertha in the summertime. She's an old wood stove. The first one I had weighed 347 pounds, you know, and people say, how long are you going to use that? And I said, well, I can't pick it up no more. But I dug a hole in the ground for years and years before I had that old wood stove. But, you know, you're down there on your knees, dirt's blowing, everything gets in the gravy, everything's in everything you cook, you know, and you be on some ranches and you be in drought conditions where the grass is yellow and dead this tall and you got an open fire, you know, and you're always wondering, somebody has to watch this, you know, all the time. So when old Bertha's enclosed, I can sort of manage it. But when it's 110 degrees and then you build a fire in it, you know, Bertha will burn the hair off your legs. You never have to shave again. And but in the wintertime, she's a good old gal. I mean, she'll put out some heat. The wagon that we have, we can, after we get the fly up, we can enclose walls all the way around it. Bertha's sort of out there in the middle. And I've been in it when it was minus 10. And I always just pull my cot over by Bertha and sleep when the cowboys be in a teepee. I keep it 35, 40 degrees in there, you know. So, and it's nice to be working at height where you're not bending over all the time.
Yeah, it's much better on your back, huh?
Oh, yeah, till you have to load it, you know.
That was my next question.
But it's, you know, Bertha's modernized now. We're fortunate enough to partner up with Hasty Bake Grill Company out of Tulsa. And I know Rich, the guy that runs that and owns it. They've been in business there for over 60, 65 years, probably, in Tulsa, Oklahoma. He said, I want to make you one of them stoves, but I want it to be easier on you. And I said, don't make it no heavier than it is. I can't lift it now. And so they made one, sort of the Cadillac of Bertha's, and put wheels on it where it'll roll. And it's pretty nice. It did increase the weight a little, but it is a nice stove. But people say, well, Cook didn't have a stove going down a trail. Some of them did. They had a little wagon that hooked onto the chuck wagon. It's called a pup wagon. It wasn't very big. It might have like a little 2-eye wood stove in it. If he was going to be in one location for a long time or something, he'd take it, dump it out right there on the ground, and he could use it. Made a lot of pies and cakes that way. But I love me some Bertha in the winter, I promise you.
How much does Bertha weigh now?
Bertha on wheels now, which you ain't got to pick all over up at the same time because she'll roll about anywhere. But I'd say she's clocking in at about 365, 370, you know, so she's in pretty good shape.
So does she fit in the wagon?
No, she won't fit in the wagon. It'd take a helicopter to airlift her and put her in there probably. But with the trailer we got now, you know, wagon goes in first. Bertha always just goes in last. And if we was ever on a ranch to where we had to move camp every day or every 2 days, we had Christine. She was Bertha's cousin. And it's just 4 pieces of flat metal that are nearly as heavy as Bertha, but they just pin together in all 4 corners, and then grate goes over the top. That way you still have an enclosed fire, because that was my biggest concern for years, is I didn't want to burn nothing down. I remember on a ranch I was at in '92 one time, they had drought it out. This old man was sitting there by the fire. We just had a hole in the ground. And he said, you ain't going to burn this down, are you? I said, not on purpose. And,
Not on purpose. And you didn't burn it down then, I'm assuming.
no, I've never started one that got away from me out of camp anyway. You know, a lot of times if there was no wind and I had plenty of water, I'd burn me a fire guard in places, you know, that way. Because we're setting Dutch ovens a lot of time outside of the fly, you know, to where we're cooking. So me and Shannon always made sure that, hey, we ain't going to burn nothing up.
So Shannon goes out there and helps you when you're out cooking for the Cowboys?
Yeah, for years it was just me, and I enjoyed that time, I did, but I didn't know what it could be like to have someone like her to be with me. And when people started calling, wanting to know if I'd come and cook on this ranch, and I'd say, if my wife isn't welcome, I'm not coming, because it was an old code in any cow camp. Women weren't allowed in camp, you know. There was a lot of rules, and they'd say, no, you bring her. And the first ranch she went with me on was a bale ranch out there in New Mexico. It's about nearly 300,000 acres. And there were 6 weeks. And I mean, I knew she was tough, and she just proved it over and over again out there, because there's no days off. There's no holidays. But she is good. I mean, she didn't know anything about cooking when we first got together. She come to cooking school. And there's 2 people in this world that I'd walk off and leave that wagon with and know it would probably run better than I was running it. And that's Shannon. And she's a great cook.
So you said it was a 6-week job. Is that typical of the time you're out at a ranch?
No, it all differs on how big is the country they're working. You know, I've been on some a week, some 3 weeks. That was the longest, 6 weeks. Really, it's a big circle. And you set up camp, and say this pasture's 25,000 acres. Set of pens is not too far from where you're camped, you know, and they're bringing everything to there that's in this pasture. You get that country work, move to the next one. You know, out there at the Bell Ranch, we put 147, 148 miles on a wagon, going and making this big circle. But smaller ranches, we may be in the same spot the entire time. You know, the only ranch I was ever at in my life that I moved camp every day, which is sort of a pain in the butt, was a Silverbrook down south of Abilene. And we moved every day after lunch. And probably had one of the worst teams I'd ever drove in my life. I never thought about eating a mule, but I wanted to eat them too, time we got finished. But when you have to cook breakfast, and then you cook lunch, and then I never set up a fly on the wagon, because you ain't got time to set up camp because you're moving every day, you know. That's when I really realized this was sort of like what old Cookie's job was going down the trail. I mean, they didn't have 3 meals, but they had 2. He'd feed them breakfast. He'd pie you out and get out of there fast as he could to get ahead of the herd, you know, set up where he thought they was going to be that night for supper, and then started over the next day. Well, you do that 3 months, that's a chore, you know. And when I was down there, one of them first ranches south of Wichita Falls, between there and Abilene, there was an old man come in there, and I had that fire pit dug, and he sat down there. It's about 2:30 in the morning. We was drinking coffee. We'd been in there about 3 weeks. He said, say, Cookie. I said, yeah, Mac. He said, would you do this if we didn't get paid? I said, probably, but we just like one more day. Let's just go ahead and get paid, you want to? And he said, yeah. And then he looked at me and he said, but you're making twice what we do. The cook always got paid twice cowboy wages, you know. And when we started out, I was getting $35 a day. So you're thinking that ain't much money, you know. He's getting 17 and a half, something like that. But you think about it, you're in there 4 weeks, $35 a day. You ain't burned no diesel, you know. You ain't bought no groceries, and so it wasn't bad. And I seen it progress, you know. When it first got to where it's $100 a day, I'm thinking, I've won the lottery now. Never be another poor day, you know. But there is something about what old Max said. When you do something you love to do, and you try to do it better than anybody else, and I'm not bragging saying that I do, but then you never have a job. It's just something you love to do.
I agree with you 100%.
Yeah.
I did something that just for the money for years,
Yeah.
and now I do something that I really enjoy.
Yeah. I told Shannon a long time ago, if you can find that niche in life that makes you happy and you can make a living at it, you're above the game of the rest of them. Because, I mean, sure, we have stress. She has stressful days because she edits and films. I just do the easy part. I cook, you know. But the glass is never half empty here. It's always half full. And it never runs out. You know, I've been in things that I didn't know that I could get out of, but I'd put my trust in God and the faith that I had in Him, and He'd show me a little wisdom there to think, you can do this, you can do this, you can make this, you know. And I don't think you ever give up in life. You just reach up there and grab a hold of that wagon wheel, get up in the seat and go.
I like that.
Folks, y'all be watching the Cowboy Cartel. This be a podcast, or you check out their YouTube channel. Be sure and like and subscribe. You never know what's going to happen, and if I'm on it, it might even be a happy dance. Yep.
Good. Perfect.
I think that'll be funny.
Yes.
Everything still good, ma'am?
Yes, sir.
All right.
I understand you were a cowboy poet.
You know, I didn't like school. You get to looking out the window and I'd think what the old timers was doing, horseback or something, you know, or what was Mama cooking. And always struggled, especially in grade school. I thought it was like prison, you know. And as I got older, it got a little better, got into more sports, you know. But I remember having this class in American history to where we had to write this story about why we thought America was great, you know. And I wasn't too good with penmanship or words either. And I think everybody was sort of making a B or an A on their little stories. I made a D, you know. And I'm thinking, I ain't too worried about it, you know. And when I got out of school, went to college for a while, and I'd have classes that I really enjoyed, and I'd have to write a lot of stuff, you know. Years later, I was in my 30s, late 30s probably, early 40s. My dad had a round with cancer, and my dad was like 6'4", 260, 255, you know, just a big old man. He was a farrier, shoot horses all his life when he got out of the war. And he's stout, strong, that's always the way I seen him. Him and them old timers that gathered around him were like heroes to me. They stood like tall, giant oak trees, you know, big old arms on them. They could do stuff with a rope that I wished I could do. And when I got to seeing cancer take a hold of him, even after he beat the first round of it, it come back in 5 years. And when they found it again and told him, they said, you know, this cancer is spread pretty much throughout your body. And he looked at him and he said, ain't no step for a stepper. We'll just keep stepping a little higher. And cancer didn't kill him, but chemo did. It took a man that was 260, full of muscle, to 121 pounds, you know. Hardest thing I'd ever had to witness at the time. And only way that I could talk about it, because I didn't talk about it to people, I didn't even talk about it to my mother. I'd write it down, you know, and I'd write stories, and I'd write these little poems about the things that me and him had done together, but also what I was feeling inside. And it was a way for me to cope with it, you know, to get it out. And I didn't share them with nobody till the day of his funeral. And I remember showing it to the preacher, because he was a good friend of Daddy's anyway. And I give it to him. I said, I want you to have a copy of this. I said, I'll probably never tell anybody about it, but I wanted you to have a copy. And he said, no, you're going to read this today at the funeral. I said, I made a D in speech class. I don't like to get up in front of people. And he said, people need to hear it. And I can't even remember the words now. And if I had it, I mean, it's in there. But if I had to read it again, it wouldn't be nothing but a bunch of tears while he was reading it, you know. But I wrote a lot of stuff about him, being a farrier too. One was called Horseshoes in Heaven, and sort of about his struggle in life and what it was. But you got through because you had to, you know, it's what you did. And then I found out people would say, hey, you need to come to this little old cowboy poetry gathering. And I'm thinking, I don't write no poetry, you know. I was thinking poetry was for sissies, you know. And we'll pay you $50. I'll be there, you know. And so I wrote a lot for a long time. And I think the thing that enhanced my writing to where I'd rather write stories now as poetry is Shan. Because we got together, we was still cooking on ranches, but we was catering every week if he wasn't on a ranch. And it wasn't like he's catering 20 miles from here. We'd cater in coastal Alabama, in California, you know. And I'd be telling her all these stories. And she'd say, you need to write a blog. And I said, what is that? And she said, we get home, I'll show you. Well, I'd get in there at one computer, and she'd be in there on another, you know. And I'd write this story. And I'd say, you don't come read this, send it to me. And I'm thinking, why couldn't you just walk in here and look at it? She's trying to make me more computer educated, you know. So I'd send it to her. And she'd come back in there and she'd say, I like the first line. But she said, I do not hear your voice in the rest of it. She said, I want to hear it like you was telling it to me in the pickup truck, you know, or when we was sitting around fire somewhere, or you was talking to some old cowboy. And it took me a while to understand that. And when the first cookbook come out in 2015, A Taste of Cowboy, you know, when we got that offer to have a cookbook, we didn't really know what all it entailed. And a lot of people would have somebody that wrote a lot of it for them, somebody that come in and took all the pictures. Me and Shan never had that on no three of the cookbooks. I wrote all the stories. We had all the recipes. She took all the pictures. It was all made by us, one complete package. And even our book agent would say, I like this, because she'd look at it first, but I'm not hearing your voice again. I want to hear it, you know. So Shannon'd send me back in there, and I'd rewrite and rethink and rewrite. But stories have always been easier than poetry, because poetry has to have rhyme and meter and everything else. And I can just get up now and tell a story. I can make one up while we're going along, you know. So it's easier that way. And, but it's where I met Shan. You know, that's the reason I first met her in the first place. Elko Cowboy Poetry Gathering, you know, called me up there a long time ago to entertain and do a cooking workshop. And she was in charge of the workshop. And she couldn't understand Okie language very good, and she'd laugh a lot. And she told me later she just laughed because she was nervous. She didn't know what I was saying. I don't have an accent. People think I do, you know. So she taught me so much about being creative. And I taught her that, like I told you before, the glass is always half full. You never give up. If you don't get challenged, you'll never change. But I get to do what I love to do with the person I love the most 365 days a year. We're best friends, and hey, it don't get no better than that.
That's wonderful. I've kind of noticed that that cowboys are artistic in general,
Yeah.
right? At some level. Like our buddy Jerry Gazelle, he's a fantastic horse trainer cowboy. He makes custom chaps, and he writes stories. Our buddy J.B. Zelke, he has that Dusty Vaquero where he goes and he records cowboys who are musicians, cowboy musicians.
Yeah.
So, and you know, there's cowboy poetry, and I just see there's this common theme. What do you think the relationship between, is it the nature of the job that makes them artistic, or do artistic folk kind of drive to the cowboy world? What is it?
Look, the American cowboy has been an iconic figure forever. You can go back as far as you want to. When they first started seeing them, people would draw stick figures that had a cowboy hat on them and say, I want to be like him, you know. So it's always been one of these deals people were fascinated with. And people will tell me every once in a while, you know, you're an artist. And I say, no, artists paint, you know, artists draw. But I finally understood what they were meaning. You create. And the people that are in Western music, the people that are horse trainers, the cowboy artists that are painters, you know, sculptors, they create from the heart. And that's where it ties all together in a big circle. The cowboy culture comes together just like you're circling the wagons. You know, when you do it from the heart, it's going to make a difference because it's the best thing you can put out there. And people are happy doing it.
What are some of the kind of the stories that happen around the campfire when you're out cooking for these ranches? Do you sit around and have this kind of sharing of the artistic ability where they tell the stories or their poetry?
No, not so much. You know, we string our wagon fly out off the wagon. That's sacred ground. That's the cook's area. No cowboy in his right mind, young or old, if he knows the code of ethics of being a true cowboy, would ever walk foot under that fly until he asked permission from the cook. So we'd set up another fly off of that, and that's where the cowboys eat. That's where they visited. When I was littler and I seen that, all them old timers would get in there and visit, you know, talking about. Number one thing they talked about, and still most prevalent probably today on true working ranches, weather. Is it going to rain? You know, what's this summer going to be like? What's winter going to be like? And then it was always price of beef, you know, wages. But there was always who had the best wreck today? Who got bucked off? You know, we seen you get bucked off. You didn't think we seen you, but we saw you out there. But no camp I was ever in did I ever see somebody toting a guitar. You know, you seen that in the movies to where some cowboy come up there, and it probably happened. It probably really did. But it's a dear friend of mine, a black cowboy, very talented, and he could play the French harp pretty good. And I used to carry one because I'd piddle with it, you know, when there wasn't nobody in camp but me. Because there's a lot of times it's just me at camp, you know. I'd break out that French harp, and I would know it was really good when I could make the cows howl, you know. So, but artistic talent in the cowboy world, whether they're braiding rawhide, or they're painting, or they're shoeing horses, or they're a sculptor, you know, they're still putting that in there that, hey, this is what I do for a living, and I'm showing y'all, and it's a blessing that everyone gets out of it.
You got some words of wisdom.
I don't know about that, brother, but I would have liked to have had a tape recorder when I was 10, 11 years old and them old branding pens, because I forgot a lot of stuff that them old men would tell me, you know.
Yeah.
And,
well, I mean, that's kind of the way of life, isn't it? You know?
Oh, yeah. Especially when you get older, you know.
Yeah.
Shan gave me a Fitbit watch one time. She said, I just want to know how much you walk, you know. First day I had it on, hooked 21,000 steps. She said,
21,000?
She said, how do you get 21,000 steps in? I said, this one was living in Oklahoma. I said, you walk to the barn, you forget what you come out there for. I said, old age is handy, gives you exercise. And I said, you have to go back out there 12 times because you don't know. But something that helped my memory doing that too, when I'd go out there at the barn, I couldn't remember what I was going to get. I had a piece of pipe that was up there, and I'd just reach up there and grab a hold of it, do 20 chin-ups, you know. You don't forget much after that. You think, oh, I know what I remember now.
So that was your punishment for not remembering.
Yeah.
Let's talk about your YouTube career, because what's it been, 15, 17 years, something like that?
Ooh.
16 years? 17?
I don't know when the first one come out, actually. We probably started working pretty hard at it maybe 8, 10 years ago.
Okay.
You know, Shannon said, I think when we first started, she said, I really think this is a platform to where we can, you know, to show people what we're doing, you know. Neither one of us had any idea at the time that you could reach worldwide with YouTube. You're in control of your own content. You can say, God bless America. We all pray for so-and-so. you know, because there was a lot of TV shows I was on that would say, you can't say that, you know, and I think that's why I'm probably not going to be here, you know. And so we started working pretty hard at it. We figured out one thing real quick. And I always tell people this that ask me, say, hey, I want to start a YouTube channel. What do I need to do? First, be who you are. Don't be something you're not. People can spot a fake long way off. And be true to your roots, but be creative. But other than that, be on time. And by what I mean on time, we have a video comes out every Wednesday, 2:30 Central. People know. They know, hey, Cowboy Kent Rollins coming out today, you know. So that makes a difference. You get a pattern started, you know, to where you get people, sort of like training horses. You get them broke to lead, and then you go from there. So we'd get to studying the analytics of YouTube. And the SEO, you may think you have the best video in the world, but if it don't search, you know, you ain't gonna ring the bell. But we enjoy it so much, and it's grown. I remember when we got 100,000 subscribers, we're thinking, there is not 100,000 people out there that watch us. I know there's not, you know. And then you get 1 million. And I told Shannon, I said, I've never seen 1 million people in my life. We have 1 million people that have subscribed to us. And that's when I realized, I told her, I said, God give us a talent, and it's not just cooking. This is not just a show about what we're going to cook. We're going to teach some life in there too. And when it got to 2 million, I'm thinking, the world has gone crazy, you know. I didn't expect this would ever happen. And then when we reached 3 million, even more. But we have the best fans in the world. We get so many emails from them and so many letters in the mail that people will say, my dad died tonight, but something that me and him did together every night was watch your videos. So I'm going to watch your video tonight because I know you'll help me get through this. Or little parents will say, our children will not go to sleep at night until they watch your videos, and they're 4 and 5 years old. I said, my videos put a lot of people to sleep, ma'am. They'll do that. But the ones that touch my heart, and they all do, is people. I had a guy send me a message, and he said, I'm having chemo now. This is the 3rd time I've had to go through this in 10 years. And your videos is what gets me through this every time that I take it. We all want to make a difference in somebody's life. And I always tell people, if you don't do something with yourself or try to create something or be somebody, how are you going to change that person? How are you going to help that person? We may be the only Jesus some people ever see in the world. So put forth your best foot every day. Put your foot in the stirrup. Get up there and know, I'm not just riding for me and Shan. I'm riding for everybody else. We'd filmed for solid month in July in Oklahoma. Miserable, killing, stinking hot. Bertha was punishing me for everything I'd said bad about her. And I come in that night, Shannon had been sitting there editing, and it was like 11 o'clock at night. And she said, you know, I'm getting really tired of looking at you. And I said, I don't know how to take that, sugar. And she said, you know what I mean. I said, I'm about burnt out, heat-wise. I said, we're going to have to take 3 or 4 days off. And she said, I'm ready. Well, I'd get up usually 4:30, 5 o'clock, open that laptop, try to answer as many comments on YouTube as I could. First one that morning was, good morning, Mr. Rollins. He said, this is Lance Corporal Cody Childers. I'm currently stationed in Afghanistan. What we did today wasn't the most pleasant thing in the world, but there was 9 of us gathered around a laptop computer, and you made us feel like we were home. Please don't quit what you're doing. God bless you. I went there and woke her up. I said, we got to film today. People are counting on us. So we went back to filming that day. 2 weeks later, I get a letter from his mother. Ken, I'm just sorry, but I wanted you to know we lost Cody to an IED. The flag that we flew over his service in Washington, D.C., he wanted you to have. I said, ma'am, I can't take that. She said, oh, you'll take it. It flies with that Studebaker wagon every time it goes somewhere. And I don't tell people that to make them feel sad. I tell them, you make a difference in somebody's life. You may not know it, you may not see it every day, but you make a difference. Everybody does. So make a difference the right way. My daddy always told me, don't look down on people, not unless you're reaching down here to give them a hand up and you pull them up there. Life is simple. People just try to complicate it, just like food.
You mentioned earlier when we were talking about your father's funeral that you got a D in speech class.
Yeah.
So how did that affect you starting this YouTube channel and talking to the camera? Was it ever difficult for you?
I got over it by then.
Or did you really?
Yeah. You know, that's back when I was 16, 17, started YouTube when I was 50 something, you know. And Shan's a good coach. And to me, I always tell her, I say, I'm the luckiest, most blessed man in the world. I wake up beside a beautiful woman every morning. The dogs don't bite, and I get to do what I want to do every day. So it is a great thing. But, I mean, I remember the first live TV I ever did in 1996. And this lady had this big piece of paper, this had all these words on it. And she said, do you know what you're going to say? I said, ma'am, I ain't never knowed what I was going to say, even when I said it. She said, well, I've got it on this whiteboard here. I said, I'm not going to read that, ma'am. I said, I'll say whatever comes to me. She said, there's over 3 million people going to see this. She said, does that bother you? I said, no, ma'am, I can't see them. Does it bother you? And she said, I can't see them neither. I said, so we ain't got nothing to worry about, ma'am. She finally understood what I was talking, you know. And I love to get up in front of people now and talk. We did a deal a couple of weeks ago. National Day of the Cowboy was at the Western Heritage Museum in Oklahoma City. And, you know, people are easy to talk to now. Shannon gets aggravated at me every once in a while. We did a deal for the Wyoming Boys School a couple of years ago, where these kids are in this school, but it's sort of like a prison, you know. And they touched my life, and they had invited us over there to speak because we was at a ranch up there at the time. And we went over, and Shan said, we was on the way. She said, you know what you're going to talk about? I said, no, ma'am. She said, got any notes? I said, no, ma'am. She said, you don't have anything. I said, God will tell me what to say when I step up there. And she told me, she was so mad when we got through. She said, that was the most inspiring words for 45 minutes I've ever heard in my life. But she said, the thing that makes me so mad is you never practiced, you never wrote nothing down, you just got up there and spoke. And I think that's when words really do come from your heart. You don't rehearse it. It's just something God lays on your heart. You think, this is what I need to say. And,
I cannot rehearse. I cannot read a script. I can't do anything. Everything I do is just here it is.
Yeah, spur of the moment.
I'm not quite as eloquent as you.
Oh, I've never been elegant or eloquent. Either one, sir. People asked me the other day, one guy said, I've never met a celebrity. I said, you still ain't. You know, I'm just a person. And we have so many people that recognize us wherever we're at. And people say, I don't want to bother you. I said, you're not bothering me. My mother told me, if people take time to visit with you, you better visit back. So she said, remember, manners are free. But if you don't use them, it's costly. That's when you get that fly swatter out.
So many great words of wisdom here.
I know.
It's amazing. We got clips for days.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
So you mentioned that was your first time on national TV, was in '96?
No, before that we'd done some stuff in '94. Yeah.
So how did you get into the I guess the television arena? What was the start of this?
I really don't know really what happened. We did some stuff for an ad council that represented Oklahoma. And they had sent me out to LA to do some stuff. Well, then it's sort of like that snowball deal. You know, somebody else seen it and they said, hey, you want to do this, you know? I know nothing about TV. I liked it because it was easy, but then we started doing some competition shows for the Food Network, and they got a little involved at times, you know. When we did Chop Grill Masters, I don't even remember when it was, 15 years ago, probably 20 now. It's probably one of the most stressful things that I'd ever done since my dad's funeral, you know. The competition is something you don't ever know what's going to happen. You know, Chopped, you have a basket that groceries are in, but you ain't never seen them. Half of them I couldn't spell anyway, you know. And I told Shan, I said, I'd just like to make it through one round. And she said, you feel fire, you'll be all right. Just cook from the heart, you know. And I remember after I got through the very first day, won my rounds the first day, so going to get to go to the championship, you know. And the interview process takes forever, you know. Went out there at 4:30 that morning, got back to the motel where Shan was at 11:30 that night, and you're back on the bus at 4 o'clock the next morning. Shan said, what do you think? And I said, I'm just going to cook, you know. I said, half this stuff, I don't know what they got, you know, but I'm going to cook it. And but it was, I think the thing I wanted to get across to America and whoever was watching was I might just be some old cowboy that had spent half of his life in a teepee and at a chuck wagon, could cook anywhere in the world. I may not know what we're cooking, but we're going to taste it and see what it tastes like, and then we're going to know how to cook it, you know. Well, we end up getting second. And for years, people would recognize us in airports and places, hey, you guy on Chopped. But now it's completely different. People say, hey, watch your YouTube video all the time. And I say, appreciate it. And that's why we really love YouTube, because I didn't have a chance to connect with the fans really from the Food Network so much. But on YouTube, we get to connect with them every day.
That's right.
You know, so it's one of the best platforms there is out there. So we just have a good time.
So you were saying that you liked the YouTube platform because it gives you a chance to connect with your viewers.
Yeah.
And actually, you can have communications with them, and we love that part of it too. But you have a new series coming out.
You know, been about 10 years in the process.
Is that right?
The producer, Clay, is like family now. I hung up on him first time when he ever called. But he actually knew what we wanted out of it, and he didn't try to change it. You know, that was, a lot of people would say, hey, got this perfect show for you. I said, no, you don't, you know, because y'all want reality. We want real. And so when this finally sort of come to the top, all the cream rose at one time it did. We started filming the first season last year. And it was like a dream come true to me and Shan, because it's something we wanted. We didn't want the show to be about us. Sure, we're going to cook on there, but we wanted to showcase ranches across the United States, how they raise beef, their family heritage, and maybe cook a recipe that's been in their family for a long time. We've met some of the greatest people, seen some of the greatest places you'll ever be, and it's our way of giving back. We get to let people know that cowboys and cooks are still out there. And I always told people, as long as there's cowboys, there'll always be a cook. And this show sort of highlights that, and people would say, you know, y'all sort of a dying breed. And I say, oh, you just can't see us going down the interstate. You know, we're off where the GPS don't find you. And that's a lot of these ranches. You know, they're not right on the side of the highway. You can't see them. But to get a little piece of these people's daily lives, what they go through, how they raise beef, and raise a family at the same time. You know, some of these places are pretty remote. They're homeschooling their kids too, but also raising beef, raising fine quarter horses, you know. So it's a great deal for me and Shan, because we're getting to give back to the people we think that need it, and that is the rancher, the American cowboy.
So was it a difficult proposition to talk to these ranches and get them to allow you to bring a film crew on?
No, because the first thing I tell the film crew, you know, I said, we're not going to be in their way. We're going to do things according to their schedule, not our schedule. If they're going to start gathering cattle, at 5 o'clock in the morning and y'all want to film it, be there at 5 o'clock. We're not going to do it like, hey, we're going to do this at 9, you know. And we have the greatest crew ever, Clay and Sam and Nate and Brian. They understand what their lifestyle is now. It was new for them coming into it, but now they know, you know. And we'll usually go into a ranch, and the rancher will have a place scoped out that he thinks where the wagon ought to be. And we'll look at that area. And Nate is very particular. I've moved the wagon 3 inches, you know, just for Nate to get the light right. But it's an honor to be in these places, you know, and we're excited for the first season to come out. It premieres September 29th on the Outdoor Channel. And the second season is already in the books too. We're about finished filming it. So everybody tune in because it is a great thing to see. It is.
And it's going to be, I'm sorry, again, September?
September 29th.
September 29th.
Yeah.
So mark your calendars. Go check it out. So you've got season 1 coming
Yeah.
out. Season 2 is going to come out
In February.
In February?
Yeah.
And maybe a season 3 already?
If I was thinking this was a horse race, I'd probably put money on it.
All
You know,
right.
but I don't count chickens for the getting in skillet. So I'd say if the good Lord thinks it's a great thing and people respond the way we think they will, one of the guys at the Outdoor Channel said, you're going to get tired of seeing us. And I said, nah, this is something that we've dreamed of, you know, and it'll sort of tie in with our YouTube people too, because they really love that historical and Western culture and food, cowboys, and history.
What does it do to your YouTube shooting schedule? Because if you're off shooting at remote ranches,
It works on Shan harder than it does me, because we think, well, we'll have time to get a video in while we're there on site. We've never had time, you know. So we'll leave in 2 weeks to go to Montana and Wyoming, and we'll try to get at least 2 weeks ahead before we go. At one time in the winter, last winter, we were 6 weeks ahead, thinking it was the grandest thing ever. Then you get busy, and then you think, whew, we have one video in the can. We need another pretty quick, you know. It puts a little stress on you, but it's all good. Sorry about that, bro.
no, you're fine. You're absolutely fine. I'll cut this in, and if they don't like it, we've already got new coffee cups. They're going to see that.
It's a little Easter egg
Mm-hmm.
for the fans.
There you go. And we want to talk about hats too. So,
Okay.
can you tell us? I wouldn't do that better. Can you tell us a little bit about what we're going to see in this new series? What's it going to look like, and is it different? How is it different than your YouTube channel?
Well, sure, we done some videos for YouTube where we were on ranches years ago, but the first episode to air is at the J.A. Ranch. Why is that important? Home of Charles Goodnight. Who is he? Man that invented the chuck wagon. What better place to start? I got to stay at that ranch and sleep in the same room where Charles Goodnight slept. But also, we got to see the wagon that the J.A. still pulled out. It's a very old, iconic ranch that is in the Palo Duro Canyons, and you'll have some flat ground, but when you drop off in that canyon, and I've cooked in that country a lot for different ranchers out there, it is rough. But it's beautiful country. We get to gather up a working crew and actually feed them after they've been working cattle all day. And that's a little different than what they see me and Shan filming, to where we're just cooking maybe like one recipe. Well, this is a full meal deal. You know, it's a Happy Meal, don't come in a sack. It's got everything we needed. And there's a lot of great drone footage. Sam is good with that drone. I laughed at him when we was out there. Drone run out of gas, crashed. And he said, I think I know where it's at. He looked for it for a long time, couldn't find it. Well, Randall Gates, who is the foreman there, and Randall's a little feller, he's about 6'6", You know, first time I ever seen him on a horse, I thought he was riding a Shetland because his feet was so low to the ground. Him and Julie got the greatest heart ever. And so I told Sam, I said, if you'll show Randall the ground where the last picture you had, he'll take you to it. He knows this country this well? I said, he knows every inch of it. So he showed him, and Randall said, oh yeah, come on, get and pick up, we'll go over and get it. You know, so the drone footage to me is what I've seen is just remarkable, because you get to see something. I mean, I'm seeing it from this level, but when you can get up there and you can see that country and the canyon, or you're above all them cowboys when they're gathering cattle and the cloud of dust and everything else, it just makes me think this is what life is about. This is what people need to see, because life is so simple for us out here when we're doing this, and but it's a vacation every day.
I didn't want to interrupt you as you were talking, but I don't want to gloss over a happy meal that doesn't come in a bag.
Yeah.
That's a...
You know, I wrote a poem a long time ago, can't remember it all, but it was about, there ain't no drive-up window here and a menu you won't see. You know, our food don't fit in a sack. I always learned many years ago, one of the first wagons I ever eat off when I was a kid, food was not good. Them old timers would tell you, don't complain about the cook, he'll get even, you know. You just politely took your plate, went out there and scraped it behind a mesquite tree, you know. Sure, you was hungry, but that's it. And I got thinking when I wanted to start cooking for cowboys, because they respected me so much. I'd been on both sides of the fire now, from the branding fire to the cooking fire. I'm gonna feed them best food I can, because they're working. A good cook makes a good crew. And for a while, their ranchers would schedule their works around our availability. And but me and Shan try to feed them better than anybody else. There's 3 meals a day. There's homemade bread 3 times a day. There's dessert twice a day, you know, because they're our family. And what are you supposed to do? Take care of them.
Now, your YouTube channel, the videos you make and the recipes you share, are these the same recipes that you cook for the Cowboys, or?
Oh yeah, everything that's ever been in our cookbook is fed a cowboy at least once. You know, I get comments on YouTube, well, you don't fix that for cowboys. I say, you wasn't there. You know, sure, I have to come up with something new every week. We still go back to some of the old classics and redo them again, but I'll cook something that I haven't fed cowboys with, and I'll think, that's going to go on the menu next time, you know.
One of your most viewed videos is the Big Mac.
Yeah.
The recreation of the Big Mac. Have you ever fed that to a cowboy?
Yeah. Yeah. Especially with that sauce that we make. It's got the chipotle peppers and adobo sauce. You know, more people found our YouTube channel probably through really 2 videos. 3. One was chicken fried steak, where we beat Bobby Flay. 2 was coffee, cowboy coffee. And 3 was a Big Mac. You know, we try to do a remake on some fast food, and I always let people know, I'm not making fun of these people that are doing this, you know. Can I make it better? I'm sure going to try. But they're doing a service to our community, you know. I'm patting them people on the back too.
Well, you know, and I've seen this in my lifetime. We have gone from grandma cooks every day or every Sunday, or mom cooks every day, to now we have, you know, then we came out with those frozen dinners and then the fast food, and nobody cooks anymore. So I think a lot of people may be scared when they see your recipes. Maybe they'll watch it as entertainment, but they don't realize they can actually make this. And it's not that hard.
No, and I remember Shan telling some folks one time in our cookbook, because we made our cookbooks to where if you never cook out of it, you're still getting something out of this book. It's like a coffee table cookbook. You know, same way with YouTube and a recipe. A recipe is like a road map. You can venture off any road that you're on, take a different route. I've changed recipes all my life that my mother or my grandmother or some old timer had, but the thing I want to get across to them is it's a time to bring family back together. There's more people at a table now holding a cell phone than there is a fork, and that's bad. You know, I remember so many meals when I was growing up to where you sat down at a table And my mother would say, it's not the legs that hold this table up, it's the family around it. And we'd bless our food and we would eat and we'd have a conversation about what went on that day. People think they're so busy now that they don't have time to sit and have that time. It's some of the most valuable time that I have with Shan, and we may not do it 3 meals a day, but we do it at least 2, breakfast and supper, you know, to sit down and we just bless the food and we just talk about, hey, it's the greatest day ever.
Well, Anna does a great job of cooking for us. She cooks all throughout the week, and sometimes, because we're pretty busy, she'll make it ahead of time.
Yeah.
That way it's in there and we can just
Yeah.
go. But you know, we've started where I'll cook. I've always liked to cook, and I'll cook on maybe a Saturday or something like that for us, and we'll do that when we're home.
Yeah.
So, you know, maybe we'll have to try the.
You know, people, I get
Recipes
this
out of your
comment a lot from folks. How come you make so much great food and you look the way you do?
I mean, that's a great question.
I said, how do I look? Well, you look like you hadn't eaten enough. And I said, if you see it as often as I've seen it, you take one bite, you've had enough. I said, but the post office eats good. Vet clinic does pretty good. I said, the little local store, we take it to them. I learned that really from my mother when I was little, and we'd do a big Thanksgiving meal. By the time we got through with it, we didn't want none of that stuff that was on the table, you know. I mean, sure, it was all good, and we might eat a little, but a bologna sandwich was pretty good, too. You know, you didn't have to put much effort in it. Me and Shan, I try to cook supper. If we're not filming a video, I'll cook supper for her every night. But we don't eat a lot.
What's a typical dinner or a typical breakfast for you?
A lot of times she'll have a smoothie, you know, and I got to where I just have, especially in the summer, I don't like to eat much, but I'll have like some kind of protein shake, you know. I used to fix her 2 eggs every morning, and I might have one, but in the winter we'll get back to it a little more to where I think we'll need a little something to fuel the day. It's going to be cold, you know. But in the same way feeding cowboys in summer or when it's hot weather, cowboys never hardly ever eat a big noon meal, you know, because they knew they were having to go back out there and do it all over again. So we do like salad, you know. And if I'll grill something up, some chicken or some steak or some pork. We'll have it all week. We can put it in a salad. But I like an Allsup's burrito about as good as anything. And,
That's what we lived on in Turkey, because I don't know what happened, that either we were shooting all day and we missed when the Chuck Wagon was open or whatever, but there was nothing open that weekend. We were in Turkey, Texas, and so we ate a lot of Allsup's burritos.
I remember the first time when we was on a ranch, we was living down by Wichita Falls. I told Shan, I said, we're going to go get us a burrito tonight at Allsup's. She didn't even know what Allsup's was, being from northern Nevada. Well, I've been working cattle, come in all that day, and she'd got out of the shower and put makeup on and all this stuff. And I said, what's the deal? And she said, you said we're going out to eat. I said, yeah, we're going to Allsup's. I don't know. Got her in the pickup, and we drove down there to Wichita Falls and pulled up to Allsup's. She said, you need diesel? I said, no, this is Allsup's. I said, it's going to be the best green chili cheese burrito you ever eat in your life. And she said, I took a bath for this. And I said, yeah. I said, hey, when I was rodeoing, I said, this is my #1 place right here. And she found out a long time ago when she went with me that your bladder and the diesel tank was the same size, because you wasn't going to stop but one time.
Well, I can't get away with that, but I like the sentiment on that. Do you want to read some of those questions for him now?
Yes. Chuck Hale. Can I read into the mic so you get the audio?
Yeah, you should be able to read if you read close enough to that we should.
Okay, Chuck Hale asks, out of all the places you have cooked meals, what is your favorite one?
Most favorite one, I would say, has the most memory ever, would be at the second level of the Palo Duro Canyon. We were at what we called Summerfield Camp. It was like 5 degrees that morning. And there was a lot of mornings that I really wished that I could ride out with them. This was not one of them mornings when the wind blowing 40 and it's 5 degrees, but as clear as it could be. And when they topped out on that rim, I could hear them. You know, you can hear the sound of a horseshoe hitting a rock, but when it's dark, you can see the spark.
Is that right?
Yeah, and because I'd let Wall down on one side and I'd watch them ride out in the dark, single file, you know, and I'd say, Lord, thank you for the view I have out my kitchen window. And I'll never forget that morning, and never forget what I got to see. But it's that way on every ranch I've ever been on. There's always something that jumps out at you.
Richard Swick wants to know, what's the largest group of ranch hands you've cooked for by yourself?
Largest group of ranch hands was 40 people. It was on Sneed Pool Cattle Company up there by Dumas, Texas. And they neighbored up. What I mean by that, all the adjoining ranches come together. Nobody got paid. You helped neighbor out, neighbor helped you. And old Joe told me, he said, you're going to feed 40 people. I said, 3 meals a day? No, Ken, he said, you don't feed nothing but lunch. And I said, 1 meal? Yeah. And he said, we're going to bring China over from the big house. I said, you better take it back with you. I said, because when I'm washing dishes, I'm a little rough. I said, if you value it, I'd take it back with you, you know. And he said, we can do her. And I was there about 10 days, you know, and 40 people really, I mean, I have a system that I've always had, and Shan knows it now very well. There's no wasted motion between us, you know. If I'm by myself and I'm having to cook something, everything's really pretty close to old Bertha. Bread's cooking over here, dessert's cooking over here, you know. But I always like to tell this story too. Give Kids a World Foundation called us back in 97, 98. Said, hey, you're one of the few people we can find that don't mind feeding a large group of people. I said, how many you got, ma'am? She said, it'd be 750 people for 3 meals. I said, we'll get her done, sugar. I said, it'd be me, 1 more wagon, 2 other guys. We said, fed 750 chicken fried steaks that night, 750 breakfast, and 750 lunch. We never went home, never went to the motel. We just stayed, you know. But they raised about $875,000 that day. And so I always liked the challenge. We used to do a deal where it's 500 steaks for this company. And it's hard work, and you get to thinking, you're just working 1 day. No, you got about 3 days tied into that before you ever get there, you know. So, hey, a crowd is good.
750, I mean, that just blows my mind, especially with, what, 4 people, did you say?
Yeah, 4 of us.
Wow.
I mean, it's 2 wagons.
Yeah.
And which we got big old deep fryers. We could deep fry, 5 in the basket, 15, 75 chicken fries in 5 minutes, you know. And we got a way to keep them warm. We make the bread ahead of time to where you're cooking it. You have 16-inch Dutch ovens out there cooking bread. You make gravy. You make cobbler ahead of time because it's the first thing you're going to cook because it can set. And for breakfast, it's biscuits, gravy, sausage, scrambled eggs, and you deep fry bacon. People say, what? I say, yeah, you deep fry it. It's the quickest way to cook it, most healthiest way to cook it, because it's not in the grease very long. You just take a 96-pound slab of bacon that you can order and you cut it into thirds. And when you fry it, it'll curl up sort of like pork rind. But it's the fastest way. Sure, you got to drain a little grease out of that deep fryer. And then at lunch, you just get some of them big old wash pots, them cast iron ones, hold 30 gallons. Each one of them's full of stew. You have stew, cornbread, and cobbler again. And I remember there was a guy when we got finished come up to me and old Jerry, and he said, you know, for people that haven't been here when y'all first showed up, there's a lot of stuff went on they don't know about. And I said, yeah. He said, y'all ready for bed? I said, we'll be ready here in a little while, yeah. But then you got to wash everything between every meal, clean everything up, you know. And at the end of it, then you got to load everything. It's long days and short nights, but very, very rewarding. I've never been on any job but one that I didn't think I got something from it. I don't know.
All right.
Sorry for the long answer.
No, it's
that's
great.
fine.
It's fantastic. You've made my job so easy today. I'm just sitting here enjoying the stories.
And we did some research on you.
Yeah.
Too, so, yeah.
Nope. Are you sure?
We can drag another chair.
Behind. Yeah.
We can drag another chair over here.
In this series, though, she's equal part of it. I wanted it that way, and she's good. She'll say, I don't like to be on camera. She is so good on camera.
I'm not equal part.
I bet it's real close. Because I've been giving, the producer and everybody give me a hard time. They say, you know, third season, it's called Cooking with Shan. I say, yep.
And major.
Because she always has this best line at the end every time. And I'll think, yep, she's trying to get my job. This is question time.
This is
from,
question time.
from viewers.
From viewers?
Yeah.
We usually, when we do a live, we have all the people, we let them ask questions there, right?
Yeah.
And so we asked them last night to submit some questions.
Oh, good. So that's a question for me, and then we go into hats.
Okay.
And then the rapid fire question.
All right.
Okay, so I'd like to ask you, what legacy do you hope to leave with your cooking? How would you like to be remembered when you're not here?
Well, I'm going to answer that two ways, darling. I was on an airplane one time coming back from British Columbia doing a little deal. And there was a young kid there who was in college, and he said, I'm supposed to write this story that has meaning. And he said, it's about death. He said, what would you like for there to be written on your headstone? I said, nothing. He said, nothing? I said, don't worry about trying to make a mark in your life when it's over. Make a mark in your life while you're living it. People will know. If you have to write it down on something, no. But if I leave a legacy to something, it would say, like I've always told Shan, you might be the only Jesus some people see. Your cup is always half full, and there ain't nothing you can't accomplish if you'll put your heart into it.
Thank you.
Now, Eric Zipman wants to know about your hat. He wants to know the details, who made it, the crown and brim you wear, and your favorite dish to cook.
All right?
So he's got multiple questions.
Yes.
And we actually know the answer to this because we saw your hat maker 2 days ago.
Yeah, Chaz Mitchell. Known Chaz a long time. He's been making hats for me probably 8 years. He very seldom changes colors. I had a black one to start with, you know, but I'd never had a custom hat in my life. And when he got all this stuff on measuring your head, I thought I was finna have brain surgery, you know. And he told me there ain't nothing up there, you ain't got to worry. But it's a 4-inch brim now. I sort of like it that way, keeps a little more sun off of me. And I tell him to put in whatever crown he wants to. And he changes it up sometimes from year to year. This is more what I'd call the cattleman's crease than anything else. But the guy is so gifted, you know, and so talented. And he's made hats for Shan. And it's one of them things to where if you've never wore a custom hat, it's sort of like having the most comfortable pair of socks you'll ever have on in your life, you know. And so Chaz is my people.
We went there to do a 90-minute video with him, and we were there over 6 hours.
I can believe that with Chaz. I can. Yeah,
So
he got a lot of stories.
He does. He's very interesting, very nice guy, great to talk to, and willing to share.
Yeah.
Right, information. So I think we got 2 videos out of that one.
He is good people.
They're probably out now. Go check out our YouTube, and you can see those videos on custom hat making. And do you know what quality you wear? Probably an all beaver.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's all beaver. Every one of them have been.
I bet it is.
And he used to. I mean, it still is. All this is pink in here, you know. But I remember the first time he made me a hat, he sent it to me, and I called him and I said, it's Chaz Mitchell custom hats in here. I said, I thought this was my hat. I said, I thought you put my name in it. He said, I ain't gonna put your name in it. And but you know, I don't really know how long it takes him to make one from start to finish, you know, but that is another very artistic talent, you know. And hats been being made forever, you know. There was so many hats.
I agree, and you know we've been to hat factories where they are producing 800 hats a day, and we've been to custom shops where they're producing 4 hats a day, and you know the level of care in a custom hat is just different.
Yeah, yeah, it is.
Okay. There was about, I think, favorite dish too. Is that?
Oh yeah, favorite dish.
Oh yeah, there was a
Yeah.
follow-up, wasn't there?
Yes.
Favorite dish that I've cooked or I like to eat.
You'll like to eat.
Okay. it's going to come to a shock, to you.
Uh-huh.
Oh, to cook. I'm sorry.
Oh, my favorite dish to cook.
Let's do both.
All right. My favorite dish to cook would probably still be two things. A good filet. That's reverse engineered a little bit, give it a little smoke bath, and then sear it really good, whether it's on the grill or in a cast iron skillet. And then bread pudding with a whiskey cream sauce. But my favorite thing to eat requires no fire, and no dishes to wash, and that is sushi.
Is that right?
Yes.
That's
Shannon
what I
asked me one time, she said, "You ever eat sushi?" And this was a long time ago, before we was even married. And I said, "Yeah, I got it at a truck stop at Reno one time." She said, "That's not where you get it." And she took me to a place in Denver. And you look at the menu, I mean, it's like foreign language, And she said, I'll pick out what I think you'll like. And to me, I don't know, it's just something about it that's so different and unique, but I love it. We were in Fairbanks last week, and probably eat some of the best sushi I ever had in my life there.
Well, I guess Alaska, you're right there where it's coming
Pretty
out.
close, pretty close. But we have made sushi too.
Have you really? On the show?
We made a beef sushi, and then we showed people how to make a sushi without any equipment besides just a piece of plastic wrap, And I like to make it. It's a little time consuming, but still you're not building a fire to do it, and that's a plus.
So those videos are on your YouTube?
Yeah.
We will link those in the comment section
All right.
below so people can go
All right.
find that, and maybe they can. Lorena loves sushi. I'm not a fan of raw fish, and I think it's a mental thing to me. I just can't.
To me, when it's done right and you get this sauce that they have on it, I don't know, it just ties, you get the vegetable, which is usually cucumber, maybe some green onion, some avocado, but whew, I could have some right now if somebody go find some.
Me too.
You have another question?
So, in Mexican cuisine, the tortilla is a staple. What would you say is the one for American cuisine?
You said sopapilla?
Tortilla.
Tortilla.
Yes, sir.
I think in Mexican food for me, and I tend to go back to classics. What I like the most is I would say huevos rancheros, because you're still getting that hearty breakfast, but when you make that red sauce from homemade to put on there, and you fry that corn tortilla that is homemade in a little bacon grease, it's a complete happy meal again. I learned a lot from an old Mexican man that was out there in the Gila who carried a tow sack with him everywhere he went up there that had dried chilies in it. And he would pick one up, I didn't know what it was, and he'd say, hot. Get another one, pretty hot. Damn sure hot, And, but I probably use more dried chilies in my cooking now than I do fresh because there's so much more flavor. We did a video this last winter on chili colorado where you blend all them great peppers together and whew, it is good eating.
Maybe, did I misunderstand the question? Were you saying like tortillas are to Mexican cookie as what is to American cookie?
Yes.
Oh,
So, yeah.
I wasn't going to stop him.
I know. Well,
That's good. I like that too.
Yeah. So I mean,
Can
so
you
what
ask him?
would be
Yeah.
to American cooking as
All right.
tortillas to
Yeah.
Mexican?
Yes.
As tortillas are a representation of what people think in Mexican cooking, I would probably say just a good all-American burger, and we've done so many burgers, but to me that's really classic in American is like diner food, something like that. There's a lot more that goes with it, but it's hard to beat a really good burger.
I agree.
Audio still good?
Yeah.
Batteries?
Battery's a little low. You want to change this? Or
If we can make it, we can get it.
yeah, it's
Yeah,
a red
just keep an eye on it.
It's not
Is it red?
yet.
Okay.
Okay. So I got the rapid fire questions.
All right.
Yeah.
No, you want to read
I'm
them?
just worried I'm not gonna get the right audio.
I'll have to. What kind of rapid fire questions are these?
They're gonna be hard.
No.
Hope
I
they're
don't
multiple
think so.
choice.
Okay. So we have some rapid fire questions here, and let's. I didn't read these
Okay.
ahead of time. Let's see what we got. Biscuits or cornbread?
Biscuits,
Coffee, black or with cream and sugar?
coffee with bread pudding, whiskey cream sauce in it.
Is that right?
Yes.
All right. Dutch oven or cast iron skillet?
Got to have both.
If you could only have one.
If I could only have one, I'd say a Dutch oven because you can fry or bake with it either one.
All right, there you go. Chili with beans or without beans?
I was raised with beans.
All right. Sweet tea or cowboy coffee?
Sweet tea in the summertime.
Steak medium rare or well done?
Medium rare to rare.
Brisket or ribs?
Whew. Can I give an explanation or are these just a
Yeah,
fast
go ahead.
answer? You know, I used to have an old big smoker. You could put 40 briskets on at a time, and I was cooking so many of them when they were 18 cents a pound, and now they're like gold. You know, I used to pray at night, God, don't make briskets on cattle no more. You know? I still cook quite a few of them, and I don't mind it as bad now, but I do love ribs. That's probably one of my favorite things, some baby back ribs or beef ribs either.
All right. All right, so potatoes, mashed or fried?
I'm going to go with mashed because you can put gravy on anything, but I'm going to go with mashed potato.
All right. That'd be a hard one for me. I don't know, because I just love potatoes. Best campfire dessert, cobbler or bread pudding?
Bread pudding.
Sunrise or sunset?
Both.
Horses or mules?
Ooh. I'd say horses because I've just had 2 good mules in my life and had a lot of good horses.
Wide open plains or mountain trails?
I'd say mountain trails. I've seen a lot of wide open country and I really love the mountains, but one thing about wide open country, nobody sneaks up on you. I don't know. But in the mountains, it's just like here in the backyard. You know, we have a visitor every day. Most time he's 4-legged and got horns, but they don't back talk much. I don't know.
Lorena was asking earlier if you had bear out here.
Yeah, we got quite a few bear. People tell me they see them all the time. I've seen 2 sets of tracks since we've been here, but I ain't laid eyes on one. I don't know.
So, I lost my place here. Okay, favorite cowboy hat, straw or felt? And I've only seen one video, I think, of you in a straw. So.
Yeah, you know, there used to be a changing of the guard. Well, forever there was nothing but a felt hat.
Yeah.
You know, and then you get seeing straw hats, and you get to Memorial Day, and people would go to wearing straw hat. And get to Labor Day, and people put a felt hat back on. Out here where we live now, I tend to wear a felt hat about 98% of the time. You know, and depends on the color. I mean, Chaz made me a black hat one time in summertime. Thing will heat your noggin up pretty good, you know. But a straw hat to me, and I've had palm leaf, I've had everything, but they're really good. If it's really hot, really humid, you know, I like them.
I agree. I like to wear felt as much as possible, and it's beautiful right now.
Yeah.
It's kind of cool,
Yeah.
and it's middle of August.
Yeah.
So it's beautiful weather, and the silver belly, you know, the lighter colors,
Yeah.
they work great for the early fall and summer if you want to wear them in summer too. Campfire talk, tall tales or good music? We kind of covered that.
Yeah, I'd say probably more tall tales, but one thing there never was in camp, politics.
Oh, really? That's
If
interesting.
anybody ever started, they gone.
Yeah.
You know, cowboy code of ethics. You know, if people. I mean, we have a video on really the cowboy code of ethics and how we think America should live life. And if people would apply that today, we'd be in a whole lot better shape than we was yesterday.
We'll put a link to that video down in the
Ain't
comments
that what
as
it's
well.
called?
I can't remember the official title, but
It'll get them there.
it's like Codes of the West. Or
Yeah.
something,
All right, we'll look for it. And
All
if we
right.
can't find it, we'll shoot you an email. All right. Favorite sound: a sizzling skillet or crackling fire?
I really like that sizzle.
Yeah.
That you get an old cast iron skillet really, really good and hot and throw that steak in there. it's a good sound. I've been around so much fire in my life. I don't mind it so much in the wintertime, but when it's crackling in the summer, I'm thinking, you finna sweat.
If you could only cook one meal for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Ooh. One meal for the rest of my life. That's a pretty hard thing. I don't think I'd ever get tired of pizza.
All right.
I mean, I like sushi, but I do love me some pizza. Or an all-subs burrito.
Have you tried to make one of those all-subs burritos?
Yeah, we did a remake.
Did you really?
Yeah.
How'd it come
At their
out?
50th anniversary. I think we outdid them.
Did you?
You know, but that's just my thinking, you know. They've been doing it 50 years, or over 50 now, because that was 5 or 6 years ago. But if people ain't tried them, and you're going down the road and you see an all-subs, get you a chimichanga and a green chili cheese. I mean, it's date night right there.
Making me hungry. So, I forgot what I was going to say. Sorry. I had something going there. I forget what it was. Oh, what's one spice you'd sneak into every dish if you could?
Chipotle peppers and adobo sauce.
There you go.
Put it on ice cream.
What cowboy from history would you want to meet, or would you want to share a meal with?
I'd probably say Will Rogers more than any. No, I mean, he was a cowboy. He grew up one of the greatest ropers there was, but he was also a great statesman. But as far as probably, if we're talking like film actor or something like that, I would think Jimmy Stewart. You know, he played a pretty good old cowboy, and I just like to sit down with him, hear how slow he talks. And
He was a great actor.
Yeah.
And I miss him. Yeah, that was.
yeah, he's good. Never got to meet him. I don't think we have ever met any of those. We worked on a ranch one time for this event. It was a fundraiser on one of John Wayne's old ranches. But most famous person I ever met's right there in that red shirt.
I was going to ask you, the most famous person you ever met, but
Yeah.
that's a pretty good answer.
You know, I met Jackie Chan one time. I didn't know who he was. And I was out there in L.A. filming this stuff for the Home and Family was the name of the show. And they told me, said, we got through and said, you know, your kind of people would probably like to go eat over here. Well, always think, what are my kind of people, you know? So they sent me to this barbecue place. And I went up there. It's like 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And I walked in there. Wasn't nobody in there. This group and me, you know. And I was sitting there, and here in a minute, this guy turned around there, and he said, how you doing? I said, I'm good. He said, out here sightseeing? And I said, no, working on a show today. What was it? I said, with Christina Ferrari. He said, oh, yeah, I know that show. He said, I said, reached my hand out there. I said, Kent Rollins. And he said, well, you probably know who I am. And I said, no, sir. And he laughed, and he said, oh, my gosh, I'm glad I met you. And he said, I'm Jackie Chan. And I said, don't ring a bell, brother, sorry. And he just kept me, he said, this is the greatest thing ever. And I said, so what does Jackie Chan do? He said, martial arts. And I remember I looked at him, and I said, I know Marshall Dillon. He didn't know who that was, but he was a great guy to sit down and visit with, you know. We didn't visit long, and that's back in 94 maybe, something like that.
That's when he was big. Too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he ain't very big. I mean, he is a little bitty feller, you know.
Yeah.
But he got the greatest laugh. I don't know. He's all right. You know?
If you weren't cooking, what would you be doing?
I'd hope to be sitting on the porch with Shannon, 3 dogs. That'd be a vacation, you know. So cooking has brought me a long ways. I just always try to remember what my mother said, cook what you love for the ones you love, and use your hands, they're an extension of your heart. And we try to make that pretty representable every day, but in everything we do. And like I said, when I get to do it with the one I love, and we don't we may have some stressful days, and the world may throw stuff at you that you think is bad, but we tend to just have good days. I don't know.
Kent, it's been a great conversation today. We really appreciate you having us into your home and taking the time to talk to us.
It is my pleasure, my friend. You and your wife welcome in our camp anytime.
We appreciate it.
You know, you're a hat man. And we talked about Chaz making hats. I got a hat in there that my dad bought for me in '91, about a week before he died. And had people try to buy it. It's pretty old, pretty nasty, you know. But he always told me when I was little, you never judge a man by the hat he wears on his head or the horse he rides. And there was an old black man that we went to pick up one morning that was going to help us gather cattle, named Red Brown. I'd never met him before in my life. And we pulled down through this pasture, picked him up, and he come leading out of the barn with a white mule, had a saddle on him. He was wearing overalls with a conductor's cap, pair of brogan boots. And you know how young kids think they're smarter than anybody. I told my daddy, I said, if that's help, it's going to be a long day. And he sort of give me a little slap on the back of the head. He said, you pay attention to that man right there, he'll teach you something. And he had a cotton rope tied to the back D-ring of his saddle, and he roped heels all day long, everywhere in the world, underhanded, overhanded, never missed, you know. He become like a grandfather to me and taught me so much about really life, not only just as a cowboy, but just as a person. And Red was truly good people. But always remember, just be happy in what you're doing. And I can see y'all are. And like I say, it's been a great pleasure for me to be on here. But even more of a pleasure, it is a great pleasure for me to stand before that flag and say I tip my hat to all the servicemen and women and all the veterans that have kept that old flag a-flying over camp. We commend you all. We do. But my friend, thank you. And folks, y'all are watching the Cowboy Cartel. And be sure and tune in to this episode on their YouTube channel to see what I'm cooking up. You never know what might be happening with me and this fella right here. God bless you, my friend.
God bless you.
Y'all be safe.
Hey, thanks.